Yeah, it's on now.
Bring it back. Session. Session has been resumed.
Your Excellencies, we now resume the General Assembly. We ask that all representatives take their seats. So everyone's back. Right, at this time, we wish to recognize the representative of Australia, the chair of the peace negotiations.
Unfortunately, I iterate to you today that negotiations have broken down irreparably due to inconclusive results from both sides of the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Both sides have been willing to concede anything, such as a ceasefire or territory. No conclusion has been reached at this time, and it does not seem to do so. Russia has been in breach of the negotiations that were reached 2 weeks prior of a 3-week ceasefire, which we are only 2 weeks into. Unfortunately, we do not see resolution for this specific event, and the delegation of Ukraine has indicated that they are unwilling to participate in any more negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Are there further submissions? From the other members of the peace negotiations at this time? We wish to recognize the representative from the Ukraine.
The delegate of Ukraine wishes to explain our decision on not furthering any more negotiations with the delegate of Russia. Previously, 2 weeks ago, we had reached an agreement to have a ceasefire of 3 weeks. And now, the delegate of Russia, 2 weeks into this 3-week ceasefire, has reached this agreement and fired six missiles onto our country, destroying 10 regions, destroying a lot of infrastructure in 10 regions, and killed 6 people. And now the delegate of Russia is requesting that we give out even more sanctions to stop the ceasefire, the one that we had previously agreed before to have been stopped. I don't see the reason of continuing any more negotiations, as clearly the trust between the two countries have been broken. Thank you, Master Chair.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we are asking for further submissions from the members of the peace talks, and we ask the delegate from the United Arab Emirates to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the United Arab Emirates would have expressed our deep concern for the environment and the lives lost of the Ukrainian people to the Russian Federation, to which they have expressed their disregard for.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear a submission from the representative of Malta.
Thank you, Chairperson. Malta recognized the importance of the existence of the nuclear power plant in Ukraine and the seriousness of the whole instance, as we acknowledge that the plant is on the brink of the nuclear catastrophe, and we call for urgent steps to ensure the safety of this infrastructure and set protocols to prevent the occurrence of a similar incident. And I think we should negotiate what Ukraine clarified specifically and make an agreement as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear submissions from the representative of China.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of China would like to further stress that as we speak with great urgency, we must remember that it is in everyone's interest that we do resolve this issue. So to the delegation of Ukraine, we do believe that we should give to get. So seizing the ceasefire would mean that Russia would also have their unilateral sanctions dropped. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Representatives are reminded to please stand before they make their submissions. And at this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to highlight that there has been complete duplicity from the opposing side, and that has led to the repercussion that all have seen. And as I agree wholeheartedly with what China said, and the ceasefire would need to result from a complete absolution of our unilateral sanctions. And this microphone can't be louder enough for me to stress that. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we ask if the representative from the Ukraine would like to make a response to this submission. You have the floor.
Thank you, Master Chair. In response to both the delegate of China's and the delegate of Russia's submission, the delegate of Ukraine believes that this is not a resolution. We have already reached an agreement, and that agreement has been broken. If the delegate of Ukraine makes another agreement with the delegate of Russia, what's to say that agreement too will not be broken? That will not be a resolution. If the delegate of Russia can prove if they have become trustworthy enough to make a negotiation, then maybe things will be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Chair. In response to the delegate of Ukraine, yes, negotiations are not futile, because for negotiations to happen, there needs to be transparency, and there needs to be a promise from your side to not be, for lack of a better word, deceiving in your promises. And if that can be promised, negotiations will not be futile.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of the Ukraine.
The delegate of Ukraine wishes to ask the delegate of Russia what part of this agreement have you felt that you have been deceived?
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of the Russian Federation.
A few weeks ago, we made an agreement on the export and import. We made an agreement on lifting the sanction on exports and imports, and there was a condition that we were not able to import resources from other countries to aid in the war. And the delegation of Russia believes that that is very unfair to our side because, as I've mentioned before in the negotiation, this is not a one-sided war.
Thank you, Excellency. At this point, we will now open the floor to submissions from representatives of the developed countries and the developing countries. Thank you. We recognize the representative from Australia.
If I may convey, thank you, Honorable Chair, if I may convey to the floor that the limitations on the importations to Russia were strictly that of armaments and weaponry and not just general resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of the United States of America.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We, the developed countries, have conferred, and we recognize our responsibility to donate the necessary equipment to Ukraine in support and as relief.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The delegation of the Republic of South Africa would like to speak on our country's position and steps forward as a result of this war. Even though member states of NATO have been previously forewarned about their expansions into the east, it has still occurred, and therefore there is no use crying over spilled milk. So South Africa has decided that we will continue to remain neutral and instead focus upon the effects that will affect us after this war. And we intend to increase our investments into renewable energy and accelerate them so that we can get out of this situation and protect our vulnerable workers and communities and our people. Although we've hoped that this war could have been dealt with diplomatically, it has not been so, and as a result, we will focus on our country's interests and remain neutral.
Thank you, Excellency. We now recognize the representative from Egypt.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Egypt would like to remain neutral in this situation, and Egypt calls for the issue to be resolved in diplomatic manners. Following a diplomatic path would lead to preserving international security and stability and preventing further escalation of the crisis, in addition to averting the aggravation of humanitarian and economic conditions in the area and the world at large. Well, finally, Egypt rejects the approach of employing economic sanctions outside the framework of mechanism of the multilateral international system. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Nigeria would also like to agree to the previously stated stance of the Honorable Delegation of South Africa, but also as well as the stance of Egypt, as sanctions as a means of punishment have proven to be unjust.
Thank you, Excellency. We now recognize the representative from Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The People's Republic of Bangladesh too wishes to remain neutral and instead urges all parties concerned to exercise maximum restraint and continue to pursue dialogue through all channels in order to reach a peaceful resolution that is in accordance with international law and the UN Charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We now recognize the representative of the United States of America. At this time, are there any further submissions from the developing and the developed countries? We recognize the representative of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Trinidad and Tobago expresses our strong support to the country and people of Ukraine as they deal with this dreadful conflict. This horrific attack committed by the Russian Federation against the Ukrainian people is a clear sign of Russian aggression and must be treated as such. Moreover, it will have broad impacts around the world. Supply chains will be disrupted, and the price of imports will soar. The energy crisis resulting from the disruption of the the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant will affect countries across the world, causing the demand for fossil fuels to soar internationally. Mr. Chair, we are here today to save our planet. And this action from the Russian Federation will have catastrophic impacts in the fight against climate change. The massive increase on the demand for fossil fuels will result in enormous steps backwards being made in this fight. Additionally, as small island developing states, the impact of this action will prevent us from moving forward in the just transition to renewable energy. The huge increase on the price of import goods will impact SIDS worst of all, because, as always, those that contribute least to these crises is the most heavily impacted. So, Honorable Chair, today the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago calls on the immediate peaceful resolution to this conflict so that we can continue to move forward in this fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We now recognize the representative of China.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of China would like to remind the delegate of Ukraine that we speak in a time of desperation and that contending any proposals by the Russian delegation does not provide progress in our aims for peace, and that confidence by the delegation of the Ukraine would be required for us to reach an agreement. Thank you.
The representative of China is reminded to stand while he delivers his remarks to the Assembly. Thank you. At this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of Guyana.
Honorable Chair, I would like to speak on the Cooperative Republic of Guyana's position within the war. While we do not have the assets to accept Ukrainian refugees, we acknowledge that the people of Ukraine, we acknowledge the struggles that the people of Ukraine face, and we continue to aid in resources. We also align ourselves with the points made with the delegate from South Africa, as we will further accelerate the renewable energy use, which shows our reliance on fossil fuels as we are deeply impacted by this. And it causes the repercussion of oil to countries internationally, so we will continue to provide oil to minimize the impacts faced.
Thank you, Excellency. We now recognize the representative from Brazil.
The delegation of Brazil is in favor of Ukrainian sovereignty and does not support Russian aggression. And we hope that they can come to a long-standing peaceful resolution. In light of that, Brazil will continue to work on reversing deforestation in our country as we work to achieve our renewable energy goals.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of the Solomon Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The delegation of the Solomon Islands would like to maintain its position held during the 11th General Assembly Special Session, where we voted in favor of the United Nations General Assembly denouncing Russia's actions taken against Ukraine. It is our position that both parties should seek a peaceful and quick resolution against this war because it is affecting our countries, and it has also disrupted our amendment that we were trying to make according to our climate change amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. You'll now hear submissions from the representative of Japan.
Since our NATO ally Romania borders the southern border of Ukraine and has consequently been affected by these missiles, the developed countries have decided to take responsibility to evacuate refugees and provide required equipment and relief supplies to further assist Ukraine. There was also nowhere in the ceasefire mentioned the lifting of sanctions, and that would impose immediate agreement of Russia's amendment, which we did not agree on in past negotiations.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Zimbabwe believes that talks and diplomatic relations are the only way that you can ensure real, lasting peace, and don't see cutting off all communication as constructive at all.
Thank you, Excellency. You will now hear submissions from the representative of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegate of the United Arab Emirates wishes to emphasize the importance of prioritizing the prevention of a nuclear catastrophe, as it is particularly relevant given our shared commitment to mitigating the effects of climate change. Furthermore, we propose that the previously lifted sanctions against Russia in exchange for the ceasefire in which the Russian Federation has betrayed should be promptly reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we recognize the representative of Panama.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Panama wholeheartedly agrees with the delegate of Brazil, and we also encourage the Ukraine to continue open negotiations with the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Excellency. You will now hear submissions from the representative of Ecuador.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In support of our colleague from Brazil, we also are in agreement, and we urge that this dispute be corrected promptly, as it is not only impacting you guys, but it's also impacting other countries represented today.
Thank you, Excellency. You will now hear submissions from the representative of Chile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the Republic of Chile would like to align itself with the comments made by our compatriot, the delegation of Brazil, in support of Ukrainian sovereignty and against Russian aggression. In light of that, even though Chile has been known to have mining and nuclear programs, we continue to move on and introduce clean, renewable energy in the form of green hydrogen and other initiatives as we move to attain our energy goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We wish to recognize the representative from Australia, following which we will accept submissions from the financial institutions.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'd like to start by supporting the United Arab Emirates proposition, and I also wish to convey once more that the delegation of Ukraine has been reluctant to continue negotiations due to distrust of the Russian Federation. And I also plead to remember that the nuclear catastrophe that is upon us will be a global issue. It will affect Eurasia, including Russia, making this a critically imperative catastrophe that will infect our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of the World Bank.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The delegation of the World Bank would like to state that although it is not in our policy to provide funding towards war efforts, the World Bank will provide humanitarian support through funding as necessary to targeted and bordering countries through various instruments, including but not limited to concessional loans and grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of the International Monetary Fund.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. As the delegate of the IMF, I am obliged to maintain neutrality. I, however, encourage all parties involved to seek peace, as this war has become a thorn in our side as we aim for greater economic growth and stability. We recently reached staff-level agreements with Ukraine for 11.6 billion SDRs under the Extended Fund Facility. However, this new development will certainly influence the possibility for approval. Additionally, we will aim to make assessments for the possibility and, quite frankly, extent of economic fallout following this development. I will collaborate with the World Bank accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear submissions from the representative of the Asian Development Bank.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before anything else, the loss of human life should be acknowledged, and therefore the Asian Development Bank would first like to extend condolences to all of you who have experienced loss. We are prepared to assist those of you who have been affected by issuing grants and loans in areas we see fit.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear submissions from the representative of the IDB.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The member states of the Inter-American Development Bank fortunately are not being affected by the Russia-Ukraine war. But with the deepest sympathy, we offer our condolences to the family of the 6 individuals killed and remind all parties involved that if not more than ever, now is the time to unify at a time where we are facing a great burden from natural threats.
Thank you, Excellency. The floor is now open for final submissions pertaining to the conflict in Russia at this time. We wish to recognize the representative from Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Nigeria would just like to state the fact that it is unfortunate that it has come to this, and remember the reason why we had came here in the first place is to avoid or at least mitigate the effects of climate change. I say that to say that this conflict will lead to the total destruction of several economies as we rely on both of these nations for support in many areas. So I urge you to reach a peaceful resolution quickly.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear submissions from the representative of the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
Thank you, Chairman. Ukraine and Russia's war haven't only affected them, but also Jordan. Over 1,700 students were studying in Ukraine at the time of the war. Jordan believes that working together to solve the issues between these two countries will help us move forward. In doing this, Russia's aggression must dim, and Ukraine must consider Russia's statements in any meetings that they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear submissions from the representative of South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The delegation of the Republic of South Africa continues to wish that the war between Ukraine and Russia will be resolved diplomatically. However, we will also state that we will continue on our path towards 1.5 degrees by 2050, and this will not affect our climate change mitigation goals.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear a submission from the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, the European Union, still gives our full support to the Ukraine with any resources, humanitarian, and refugees where needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear a submission from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the 4 core UN ambitions is world peace. Unfortunately, the world stands in a state of misunderstanding, and consequently, as stated by the delegate of Russia, we must prepare for war. But prepare in what manner? I urge you, delegates, to prepare not with arms, but to prepare to protect and to prevent. To prepare to protect people and the environment with humanitarian and economic aid, as this conflict has the capacity to impact many countries across many different sectors. I would furthermore like to support the accelerated investments in renewable energy sources to prevent issues such as this, which would impact people with the lives lost and the environment in such a manner.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear submission from the representative of Rwanda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The delegation of Rwanda does not support the invasion of Ukraine and the missile strikes carried out by Russia. As a country who has been invaded by rebel groups in the past, we share the traumatic wisdom that Ukraine is currently feeling. This war does not guarantee peace, but it does guarantee suffering. An attack on Ukraine also has negative effects on Rwanda because we also have many people stationed in that country currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear a submission from the representative of Togo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the Republic of Togo would like to state our position on the current events between Russia and Ukraine. As one of the poorest and most vulnerable countries, we, the Togolese Republic, stand in neutrality. We wish that Ukraine and Russia stay in active debate to resolve this issue. But whilst that happens, we hope that all nations try to stay on track with their climate change goals.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we will hear a submission from the representative of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development would first like to start off by giving condolences to those who have died from the attack in Ukraine. When the war first started in Ukraine, we have provided our full support to Ukraine, and we will continue to do so. But we encourage both parties to seek peace, as this is affecting our member states with increasing fuel prices and logistic matters in border restrictions and airplane restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we recognize the representative from Rwanda.
I would just like to, thank you, Chairman. I would just like to make a short statement saying that the actions of Russia today is a direct contradiction of what we came here to do, which is to solve climate change.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we revert revert the negotiations back to the resolution drafting process, and we wish to take a vote for the adoption of the language in paragraph 1. All right, so at this time, we ask all countries in favor of adopting paragraph 1 as it is to raise your placards in show of yes. Thank you, Excellencies. Those against, please raise your placard. Thank you. Those wishing to abstain from the vote? Thank you, Excellencies. We wish to adopt the language in paragraph 1 as is, and we will move on to paragraph 2. Delegates in favor of adopting the resolution, the language in paragraph 2 of the resolution as is, please raise your placards in support of yes. Thank you, Excellencies. Those against, for no. Thank you, Excellencies. Those wishing to abstain from the vote? Thank you, Excellencies. Paragraph 2 will be admitted to the resolution as it currently stands, and we will move on to paragraph 3. Paragraph 3 of the resolution is co-sponsored by Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Japan, United States of America, China, Denmark, Ukraine, South Africa, Panama, the World Bank, Russia, Australia, Malta, Ecuador, United Arab Emirates, and Samoa. At this time, we open the floor to submissions from the co-sponsors of the paragraph. We acknowledge the representative of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of Trinidad and Tobago speaks to you today to propose this amendment for adoption by this Assembly. This amendment is vital if we are to ensure that every nation has the opportunity to make the vital transition to clean and green energy industries for the future. Developing nations and small island developing states do not currently have the resources to make this transition themselves, but this transition must be made if we are to move effectively into the future. Equally, The millions of people across many countries who rely on the fossil fuels industries for their survival must not be forgotten, and a just transition must be made to clean energy by all countries represented here today. Additionally, in the light of the recent actions by the Russian Federation, it is vital that developing nations transition justly to renewable energy so that we can combat the ensuing energy crisis. Consequently, this amendment will ensure that every country can make this just transition and that no country or person is left behind. So, therefore, the delegation of Trinidad and Tobago speaks in strong support of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. At this time, we recognize the representative of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the United Arab Emirates fully supports any measures taken, particularly those involving funding, that would enable developing nations to recover from the impacts of climate change and advance their efforts towards building resilience to its effects.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There will be a monetary fund put in place to help developing nations have a just transition to renewable energy sources, and the funding will be given by the developed countries and the IFIs. All contributions will be made within 5 years of this resolution being published, and the UNFCCC will be approving the donations for various countries. The delegation of Japan speaks in strong support of this amendment.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of Nigeria.
The delegation of Nigeria would, although we are not co-sponsoring, we would like to express support for any actions involving funding a just transition for any nation affected by climate change or reliance on not clean technologies. So we suggest co-sponsoring this amendment as well.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of the Solomon Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The delegation of Solomon Islands supports this amendment. I would like to co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the Russian Federation deems it important that countries are allowed the opportunity to just transition to renewable energy sources. And on the topic of fair chances, yes, we deem it important that countries are able to have a fair chance of justly transitioning to renewable energy sources.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative from Chile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the Republic of Chile would like to be added as a co-sponsor into this third amendment, as it does align with our efforts currently to advance our clean renewable energy sources, and we fully support this initiative.
Thank you, Excellency. In the interest of time, we wish to ask if there are any representatives who are opposed to the paragraph as it currently stands, and if they are, would they kindly raise their placards? Given that there is no opposition to the paragraph being adopted with the current language, we will move on to paragraph 4. Before we move to paragraph 4, we will take an official vote on paragraph 3. All in favor of adopting the the paragraph as it currently stands, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those wishing to abstain from the vote? Thank you, Excellencies. Those against? Given that there is overwhelming support for the adoption of paragraph 3, it will be admitted as it stands, and we proceed to paragraph 4. The co-sponsors of paragraph 4 are Guyana, Malta, Panama, the European Development Bank, Rwanda, Ukraine, Samoa, Trinidad and Tobago, United States of America, South Africa, the UNFCCC, the Ukraine, Japan, and the World Bank. Are there any representatives against the adoption of paragraph 4 being adopted with the language currently constituted in the paragraph? If so, you're invited to make your submissions at this time. We recognize the representative of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The delegation of the United Arab Emirates would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this amendment to show our support for concessional funding of developing countries, and we look forward to seeing it extend to green technologies other than the hybrid vehicles. In addition, we would like to make a change in the wording by removing the word by from before offering in the in the fourth line. Thank you.
Yeah, take out the word by. Thank you, Excellency. The floor is open for any other submissions or opposition to the paragraph as it stands currently. Okay, at this time, we will now move to a vote for the adoption of paragraph 4 being admitted to the resolution as it currently stands. All those countries in favor of adopting the paragraph as it currently stands, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those against the adoption, please raise your placards. Thank you. Those wishing to abstain from the vote? Thank you, Excellencies. Given the overwhelming support for the adoption of the paragraph with the current language, we will adopt paragraph 4 into the resolution as it is currently constituted and move on to paragraph 5. Paragraph 5 is co-sponsored by Bangladesh, South Africa, Rwanda, Ecuador, United Arab Emirates, Trinidad and Tobago, the Ukraine, United States of America, Japan, Malta, Nigeria, and Australia. At this time, we open the floor to any submissions from the co-sponsors. We recognize the representative of the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the United States of America is in disagreement with the use of language in this paragraph and is in consideration of abstaining during the vote. are not in agreement with the use of shall in this paragraph. And we're not in agreement with the use of shall in this paragraph where it says developed countries shall provide access to adaptation technologies, and further where it says developed countries shall provide the human resources necessary.
Does Your Excellency wish to propose the language you would like used instead?
We propose to use the language of will provide access to adaptation technologies and will provide access to human resources necessary.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The delegation of South Africa would like to ask the delegate of the USA to retract that statement, as this amendment was proposed in coordination with developed economies, and it was previously overlooked by them, and it was also agreed upon by both parties. So for the lack of commitment to show up at this point in time, South Africa cannot tolerate it.
Thank you, Excellency. We acknowledge the representative from the United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the United States of America does not wish to retract this statement. We stand by our previous statement. As for the overlooking of the wording in said paragraph, we can only now act the way that we deem appropriate in the situation, and this is the decision that we have made. In the situation in which the language is not approved, then we will have no choice but to withdraw this co-sponsorship.
Thank you, Excellency. We recognize the representative of Bangladesh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The People's Republic of Bangladesh wishes to ask that the language remain as shall within this amendment, as it has been shown that there is a lack of consistent and comprehensive information about the most recent developments in adaptation technologies, and leaving the language as will allow for this to continue, and we need developing economies need a commitment from developing nations to aid in adaptation technologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We will hear a submission from the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The delegation of the United States remains with the previous statement and continues to urge that if the current proposal is not accepted, then we will abstain or oppose from voting.
Thank you, Your Excellency. At this time, we will take a vote for the adoption of paragraph 5 with the language as originally constituted. Those in favor of adopting the paragraph with the original language, those in support, meaning yes, please raise your placards at this time. Thank you, Excellencies. Those against, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those wishing to abstain from the vote? At this time, we wish to adopt paragraph 5 into the resolution as it is currently constituted, given that there is a plurality of votes in favor of this adoption. We will now move on to paragraph 6. Co-sponsors of this paragraph are South Africa, China, Russia, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. The floor is now open to submissions from the co-sponsors of the paragraph. We wish to recognize the representative of South Africa.
Thank you, Your Honorable Chair. The delegation of the Republic of South Africa would like to have
The chair would like to ask the representative of South Africa to stand as she delivers her submission. Thank you.
apologies, Your Excellency. The delegation of South Africa would like to have the sentence at the end of paragraph 6 be removed. As a member state of the ICC, I am obliged to not let that stay. And I must say that my reason for supporting this resolution, this amendment, apologies, is the fact that my neighbors, countries like Zimbabwe and Nigeria, are currently suffering from unfair sanctions which remain on their countries, on administrations long past, hence my support for this amendment. However, the line about the ICC, as a member state, I'm obliged to have it removed.
Thank you, Excellency. We will now hear a submission from the representative of Ukraine, followed by the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Master Chair. The delegate of Ukraine disagree with this amendment. Sanctions are imposed for a reason. There are punishments for those who break international law and are intending to bring out change to resolve that. If no change has been made, then sanctions should remain. Therefore, the delegation of Ukraine requests that an addition on the third line to be made after illegal action is taken on a country, and add in there who has shown amendments to their actions. Be added, yes. Amendments to their actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. The representative of the United Arab Emirates has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The delegate of the United Arab Emirates sympathizes with the citizens of Ukraine and acknowledges the difficult circumstances they face, including feelings of oppression and hopelessness that may have contributed to their reluctance to continue negotiation. As a gesture of support, we offer to provide any necessary equipment to help ensure the safety of the nuclear power plant. Regarding the ongoing conflict, we believe it is crucial to explore avenues for peaceful negotiation. While it is clear that wars cannot be ended simply by wishing for it, and despite the breakdown of negotiations, we must begin by addressing the root causes of the conflict or deciding what can immediately de-escalate the conflict. In addition, the UAE does sympathize with the developing nations and African states with unwarranted sanctions that stifle their economic growth. However, the sanctions on Russia are some European states and Ukraine's saving grace. We do not believe in trading one people's lives for another, and so we cannot support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Given the overwhelming support for the previous chapters of the resolution thus far, we will move this negotiation to a vote on the adoption of paragraph 6 as it is currently constituted. All those in favor of adopting the paragraph with the current language, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. All those against, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those wishing to abstain from the vote. Thank you, Excellencies. Given the underwhelming support for this paragraph of the resolution, paragraph 6 will not be adopted in the final resolution as it is currently constituted, and we will move to paragraph 7. Co-sponsors of paragraph 7 are Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, the Ukraine, Chile, Guyana, South Africa, Samoa, Malta, the United States of America, the United Arab Emirates, Australia, and Ecuador. In the interest of time, we will move straight to a vote on the adoption of paragraph 7 as it is currently constituted. Those in favor of adopting paragraph 7 with the current language, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those against, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those wishing to abstain from the vote. Thank you, Excellencies. Given the overwhelming support of paragraph 7, it will be adopted into the final resolution as it is currently constituted. At this point, we will move towards a vote for the adoption of the resolution in its entirety. Those in favor of the adoption of the resolution as it is currently constituted with the adopted paragraphs and the excluded ones, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those against the adoption of the resolution as it is currently constituted, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. Those wishing to abstain from the vote, please raise your placards. Thank you, Excellencies. The resolution will be adopted as it is constituted at this time with the paragraphs which have been agreed to and the paragraphs which have been excluded. Thank you, Excellencies, for your submissions, your contributions, your participation, and we look forward to seeing you delivering remarks on behalf of your countries in the future and continuing to make your families and yourselves proud. We thank you for the facilitators, the parents, and everyone who's had a hand in organizing this year's Rotary in Barbados Model United Nations. We couldn't have done it without all of you, and we just wish to say an overwhelming thank you very much. I don't know how I feel about